Week 1 nearly in the books. Only one game left to go. That's TCU traveling to Chapel Hill tonight, taking on Belichick in his first college game. But I wanted to do just a quick recap of Week 1 because, for one, man, I'm so happy college football's back. What an incredible weekend. We've had football Thursday. We've had football Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We have it still today. Man, I love it. Goodness grief, I'm so happy we're back, boys. But we've already done some individual videos of the Alabama-Florida State game, the LSU-Clemson game, Ohio State-Texas. So if you don't see those on the side here, or if you're waiting for me to talk for them or talk about them, go ahead, pop on my channel, check those out. Those were individual uploads if you want to hear more about those games in specific and just those games. This video, though, I want to keep it short and brief, but just kind of talk about some of the biggest headlines of college football. Every game I talk about might not be listed on the score side here, but we're just going to kind of go right down the list because there's a lot to talk about, and we're going to try to condense it into one video for you all. So let's start with USF and Boise State. If I were to have predicted this game on the channel, I would have been dead wrong. I would have taken Boise State. I would have told you that I love Alex Golesh and I love what he's doing there in South Florida. However, I wouldn't have given them a chance in this game. Maybe to keep it competitive, without a doubt, but to go and win this football game, it helps being at home. I understand Genty's gone for Boise State, but I really, really liked Maddox Madsen. And, I thought that team was going to be pretty darn good. I thought they would be undoubtedly the best group of 5 school coming into the season. They got completely embarrassed. That USF defensive line was incredible. And Boise State's offensive line had absolutely no answer. The offense was completely anemic. They had no run game. They bailed on the run game as fast as possible. I think Madsen attempted, 48 passes, nearly 50 passes. Not the recipe that Boise State had last year. Again, Genty's irreplaceable, but my goodness, I mean, they were lifeless and they looked rough. So who knows? I love what Boise State's going to be able to do for the rest of the year because I do think they'll bounce back. However, USF looks good, and they got the Gators next week in the Swamp, so that might be a fun one. Florida played Long Island 55-0. It was, a cakewalk. So the Gators are going to get a physical test against a good USF defensive front. So that'll be a fun tune-up game for Florida and could be a trap game before they have to take on Miami, LSU, Texas A&M, all in a row. So again, congrats to USF, man. They look solid. Love what Golesh is doing. That team is going to be good this year. Watch out for them in the playoff, mix. It could possibly happen. Nebraska, Cincinnati. We got this pick right, baby. I didn't touch the line. I think the line was -6.5 maybe favored towards Nebraska. That might be wrong. That might be right. I can't remember. We did do a preview and prediction of this game. And I said, I think it's going to be close and I think Nebraska will win. Now, Nebraska's defense played a great game. However, Cincinnati's offense played a worse game. If not for Brennan Sorsby's legs, this game would have been 20-0. I mean, that receiving core was lifeless. Nothing there. Credit to Brennan Sorsby for at least creating something on the ground. I mean, the poor guy was running everywhere. Cincinnati's offense Satterfield, I didn't like the game that he called. Nobody could get open to his defense and to Sorsby's defense. That late interception really killed them. I just don't get the play call. You're within striking distance to at least tie the football game, and yet you try to throw a go route. It hasn't worked all night. Why we're trying it at that point in time in the football game when we're already in plus territory and a chance to at least take this thing to overtime in a game where it felt like Nebraska was in control all night, and yet it was still close at the very end. But credit to Matt Rule and his team. They grinded out a win. The Nebraska offense, the first half at least, was a little bit sluggish. The run game really didn't find much consistency. I think once they settled in that second half, they started to get it figured out. But that's just the brand of football Nebraska's going to play, even with Dana Holgorsen, and they're going to air it out more. I loved the production we saw from Isaiah Hunter, Dane Key, some of those guys. They're going to get going more, but they love to ground and pound. And if they're going to have to win games like that, they're more than fine doing so. So props to Nebraska on that win. Georgia Tech and Colorado, man, what a game. Georgia Tech just about gave this football game away. 3 turnovers in 8 minutes. You're like, holy cow. And they were moving the ball. They had success. They had the fumble at the mesh point on the handoff. Then they had the high snap that bounced right to Colorado. Then Haynes King throws a pick that could have been a pass interference. Maybe not. It just felt like everything was going wrong. And yet they still weathered that. And that's what I've talked about, even in my preview and breakdown of that football game, is that the culture that Brent Key is building is one of which Georgia Tech is used to being in games like that. They are used to these close fourth quarter, one possession football games where no matter how much it seems like they're down and out, they're just going to keep fighting. They are a gritty, tough football team. All right. So it doesn't shock me that they went into Folsom with 3 turnovers and still took that game. Now, on the Colorado side, again, man, defense has to be better. The flash and the spectacle on offense is there. I thought that Caden Salter played, all things considered, a decent football game, but when you're giving up 300-plus yards on the ground, especially when you know what Buster Faulkner and Georgia Tech wants to do, it's just a head-scratcher. I don't understand whether it's physicality, whether it's preparation, whatever it is, Colorado's got to get it figured out because everybody's just going to run the ball down their throat again this year if they can't. So I look to see them turn that around, at least in specific, the run defense. All that aside, man, Georgia Tech's got Clemson at home in week 3. So that could be a really, really scary game for the Tigers, who are already down 1 game, and they're pretty much in must-win territory moving forward. Now, granted, they did make the playoff with, 2 or 3 losses last year, so they're not entirely out, but that's going to be a scary game, and Georgia Tech's got momentum now. So my overperformer, my team of the week, is by far Auburn. Now, in my preview and prediction, I did pick Auburn to win this football game, but not in this fashion. I did not think Auburn was going to win in the way that they did. Now, the defense still had a little bit of kinks in the armor that I want to see them touch up a bit. Maybe it could have been, it's late, the game's out of reach. A lot of it was just, hey, let's play a cover 4, let's keep everything in front of us and underneath us. Let's not just keep getting beat deep. So it's hard to really gauge on the defensive side of the ball, at least in the fourth quarter. Offensively, though, Jackson Arnold, his legs, man, wow, what a performance. What a coming to Auburn party for him. All the question marks, all the skepticism. Now, again, it's just week 1. It's a Baylor defense that has struggled mightily, even dating back to last year, which Matt Pullidge and Dave Aranda have got to get that figured out desperately. But credit and all credit in the world to Auburn, that offense, Hugh Freeze, the game plan, Cam Coleman's involved. But Jackson Arnold's legs are all over the place. Damari Alston has a good day. The offensive line was moving. And just an impressive win from the Tigers. Something they needed. They needed a win like this coming into this year where they're saying, hey, the culture's changing. We're going to be better. Jackson Arnold's going to be our guy. It looked like it. So we will see. Obviously, tons of football left to be played. But you can't be unhappy with that performance if you're an Auburn fan, and a lot to look forward to this season. Tennessee over Syracuse. Joey Aguilar, baby. What a performance, right? Same kind of situation. A lot of question marks. Everybody wants to talk about how he threw how many interceptions last year, and he's very inaccurate. All the talk around camp. Look, when I did my preview and breakdown for this Tennessee-Syracuse game, I mentioned this was a team that was 6th in the nation running the football last year. Like, Josh Heupel is not a one-dimensional. We know Tennessee as this veer and shoot, spread you out, and just throw the rock kind of offense, but they can pound the rock, and they did last year. So I think people oftentimes forget that Tennessee doesn't have to heavily rely on a quarterback to just go out and play like Hendon Hooker once did or have a Jalen Hyatt out wide. And yet they still had a heck of a day through the air. Joey Aguilar looked great. Now, Syracuse, of course, lost a lot. They're still a kind of a team in progress, I would say. I love Fran Brown. I love the competitive nature they played with, and they will still be a good team this year. It's almost like a rebuilding year for them. He's going to have to take time. It's only year 2 for him. So lots to look forward for Syracuse. Nothing to hang their heads on. Tennessee was just more physical. They were bigger. They were faster. And Joey Aguilar overperformed many expectations, maybe even that of Syracuse's staff. So props to the Vols. They look good, man. They look really good. That defense had a little bit of questions. They kind of bent, but they never really broke. So I'll give them that. A lot of football left for the Vols to be played as well. Miami Notre Dame, arguably the game of the week. Great football game. Props to Miami. I did not expect this. I thought Notre Dame would run the ball more. I am baffled at what Mike Denbrock's game plan was. It just felt like Jeremiah Love was not even a piece of this game plan. Like, they completely ditched the run game from the moment the game started. The first 4 or 5 plays were all passes. The rest of the night, I should say, like, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price were almost useless. Like, they weren't even there. I mean, there were carries. Jadarian Price broke a big one. He almost got in the end zone, and they still scored, and that offense came to life in the second half a little bit more. But even then, it's like Denbrock wanted to try and use Jeremiah Love as like a gadget piece in the slot and have him catching out of the backfield and in motions, and that's just not their identity. And I don't know if there was just this fear that Heatherman was going to load the box and they weren't going to be able to, whether they thought they couldn't stop Ruben Bain and some of those guys on the defensive line for Miami that played an incredible game. Credits to that defensive line and credit to Corey Heatherman for calling a great game. But, it's a shame because CJ Carr had a pretty darn good performance. When you look at everything as a whole, I thought he played a really good game. For his first start in college football, to come out and be as competitive as he did was impressive. And it just felt like the game plan let him down. I don't understand. And then tight end Eli Raridan had a couple just brutal drops, a holding penalty, a couple mistakes. Now, he did have the big catch late in the game that sprung him down to the 2 or 3 yard line, and they end up punching the ball in. But just not a great performance from Notre Dame. Chris Ash's defense wasn't bad. There were multiple turnovers that put them on a short field, and they were still able to at least alleviate some of the pain. But credits to Carson Beck. Carson Beck played well. He looked good, poised. I didn't think it was a star-studded performance out of him, but it didn't need to be. I love Shannon Dawson. I thought the first half was actually a little bit better of a game plan than the second half. Notre Dame's defense did get 4 or 5 stops in a row there in the second half when that 10-point deficit got cut quick. But Malachi Toney shines. The run game looked good. Both Jordan Lyle and Mark Fletcher both had good nights. That Miami offense will be successful. Like I said in the preview, look, Shannon Dawson's one of the best coordinators in the country. But the biggest key to this game over anything was Corey Heatherman's defense. The improvement on this defense from the defensive line, and more specifically the secondary, is huge. They looked like a unit. The chemistry, the cohesion, the physicality. There was no breakdown in communication other than the big Eli Raridan play, which I don't know if that was so much communication as it was just a collapse on one person's side in terms of coverage. But it's college football. It's week 1. That's to be expected. You hate to see it. But when you look at a 4-quarter game, I thought Heatherman's defense played phenomenal. I thought he coached a great game. And it just felt like the Miami of old, man, physical. Like the pads were popping, they were playing. So all the credit in the world to Miami. They got a tough road ahead of them, but they get the Gators at home here in a couple of weeks, so that's going to be fun to watch for, and great win for them. So South Carolina over Virginia Tech. Lenora Sellers, not a bad night. Used his legs a little bit, threw the ball all right, only 9 completions, nothing off the charts. But again, we talked about that in the preview of this game as well. That's also on my channel, is that Lenora Sellers even last year had countless games where he only attempted 14, 15, 16 pass attempts. So that's just not South Carolina's MO, is for him to come out and throw the ball 45 times. It's not what they ask of him, nor does anybody really expect him to be that kind of quarterback. And half the time, if it's a drop back, there is no attempt because he's taking off and running and torching you. So I liked the approach. I felt that it was a little bit sluggish. The offense looked a little bit skeptical at times. The offensive line for me was the biggest question mark. They were kind of getting pushed around a little bit there. Outside of that first drive where they pushed it straight down the field, I wasn't overly impressed, but it's week 1. Virginia Tech was a good team. As for Virginia Tech, man, the red zone just killed them. Kyron Drones just struggled badly. New coordinators, new players, just a lot of new faces for Virginia Tech. So it's the Hokies. Good grief, I kept wanting to say something else. Tons of new faces for the Hokies. So to come out and expect them to win this game was a stretch. I like the way they competed. It was a little bit discombobulated. And again, the play calling and just the all-around fluidity of the offense once they got into the red zone was abysmal. Kyron Drones just couldn't find anything. South Carolina's defense did a great job. Once they got in the red zone, they planted their heels and really didn't let anything get past them. So, look, Virginia Tech's got to clean that offense up. I love how inspired Sam Cifkas' defense played. They looked pretty darn good against the South Carolina team that has loads of weapons. Nick Harbor, Lenora Sellers, how many of those guys? So, interesting game. Now, let's talk about some games we don't have on here, and then we're going to wrap this thing up and prepare for the game later here in a couple hours. Utah and UCLA. Oh boy. Nico Iamaleava transfers to UCLA to get absolutely boat raced out of a half-empty stadium. And this game was just not even competitive. I mean, Utah, when you talk about Kyle Whittingham, we know this Utah team's going to be good this year. Devin Dampier was one of the best quarterback performances of the week, for me at least. I always thought he had great potential. He shined, but UCLA just looked so out of sorts. Nico didn't look good. That offense struggled so badly, and it was just a bad performance. Just truly embarrassingly bad performance. So I don't know what the outlook looks like for UCLA. I mean, listen, they play a Big Ten schedule that is not easy by any stretch, and Like, they look like one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. Staying in the Big Ten, I want to talk about Purdue, man. What a win for the Boilermakers. Happy for Barry Odom. I think that Barry Odom, and mark my words here, is going to have success at Purdue. Maybe not this year, maybe not even next year. But if you give Barry Odom 3-4 years, you give him the resources, I really think Purdue will be back to a pretty competitive and good level within the Big Ten and just college football in general. So happy for them to come out and get a satisfying and significant win. Obviously, it's Odom's first win, so I'm excited to see what they can do. There might be an upset or two brewing on that schedule for the Boilermakers. So excited to watch that. Next team I want to talk about. Let's talk about who do I want to talk about? There's a lot too. I want to talk about Cal. Okay. JKS. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. The Cal freshman quarterback. If you haven't already, go watch that film. I mean, just an incredible performance. 3 touchdowns, was slinging the rock all over the field. It was awesome to watch. Oregon State, on the other hand, that was just not pretty. Malik Murphy in that offense looked lifeless. The defense was just getting pieced apart. I mean, bullet after bullet. Beautiful tight window throws, throwing on the run, his vision. I was utterly shocked to see a freshman look that poised, that good. For me, that was my top performer of the entire week from any player, any position. It was incredible. Now, obviously, there's a lot of talk about it. And guys, if you watch the tape, it's understandably so. Like, the potential is there. This guy could be legit. Now, the question is he going to stay at Cal, or is he going to transfer next year and go take $5-10 million, maybe not 10, but a couple $1 million to go play at an SEC or a Big Ten school? Who knows? We'll see. But alrighty, friends, that's all I got. I know there's tons of other games. That's the beauty of our sport. 135, whatever amount of teams in Division I college football. But just to keep it short, keep it sweet, keep it simple, that's what I got. Again, if there's a game that was a big game and you're like, how are you not talking about it? It's probably on my channel as an individual upload. Go check that out. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Excited for week 2. We'll have some preview and predictions for week 2 coming up. We're going to do some film breakdowns coming later tonight. And I appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you.